Welcome to Storytellers Campfire. We have been sharing some wonderful programs here at the Campfire. We've been introducing very new and entertaining shows for our listeners. Recently, we have featured the Charlie Checkers Show, On the Line Public Interest News, the Summer Reading Program, and Story Tales, which features short stories and sometimes long tales. But today, we are featuring a brand new show, Don't Give Up Your Daydream, Transitions in a Transitioning World. We hope you enjoy this program.
Hello, I'm your host, John Nuckel. I'm a private equity advisor / author and now new radio host. Welcome, my fellow creative professionals, to Don't Give Up Your Daydream, where creativity and drive meet experience and guidance. This is our first show, and I'm so excited to get started. Our goal is to introduce you to guests who have gone through major transitions in their lives or careers and have landed in a better place. All of them have kept their creativity alive, and that has been vital to their success. It's a thrill to have David Lender as my first guest. David is a former investment banker and current best-selling author. He has 7 novels and a collection of short stories available now. And I just read his latest thriller, Spin Move, and I knew he would be number one on my wish list to have on my first show. Welcome, David.
Thanks, John. Great to be here.
So how are you? How you been?
I'm good.
Good.
Working hard. I've got a new novel going. I was writing before the show here. So.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you, what are you working on now? Before we get into our interview, let us know what you're working on.
Sure. I have 2 series. One is Sasha Delmira, which is a spy, espionage. She's like a James Bond ninja.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a white-collar crime series, which was the Spin Move was part of that. So
yeah.
I'm working on my next book in the Sasha Delmira series. My first was Trojan Horse, and then Arab Summer. And so this will be my third in that series.
I really loved Arab Summer, by the way, also. I think I said that to you before.
Thank you. Thank you.
So now here's the thing. We want to get people to try to think about transitions. We want to help them. So how does someone go from being an investment banker for 25 years to a best-selling author? Did it take what it took, like a month or so to make this transition? How does it all work?
At least a month. I had really wanted to be a writer when I was young, and so it was, and a novelist, and that was something that when I went to college, that was something I worked very hard at. I was an English major. I took a lot of writing courses, but when I got out of school, I decided to take a different route, and I got very interested in the stock market, went back to business school, and that's how I became an investment banker. But being a writer was something I'd always harbored as a long-term objective, and I had just moved to New Jersey with my then wife from the city, and I had a big house with an office, and I said to myself one day, you know what, this is as good a time as any to write that first novel. And so I would get up every morning a little earlier than usual before my commute into the city. I would get up about 5 a.m., and I would write for an hour before I would go to work. And so that's really how I got going, and I just made it into something where I was just going to grind it out. I'm a pretty organized person and kind of a plugger, and so I wrote my first book that way.
So
really
when you
without any.
first started writing, waking up like at 5 in the morning, you had in mind that you were writing a novel. You weren't just practicing or working on your craft. Okay.
No, I don't believe in practicing. I mean, writing is writing is writing. So I was just going to write the book.
Yeah. No, that's good. Now so to do this, to take this extra time every day, to wake up early every day, what inspires you to do that? Like, what gives you that drive?
Well, I think that's kind of how I approach everything in my life. If I decide I want to do something, I do it pretty much whole hog, or I'm not going to do it at all. So, and I'm fairly disciplined, pretty broadly across whatever I do in my life. So I just decided. Really, the big decision or the inspiration was to say to myself, I'm going to write the novel. And then once I'd made that decision, it was a question of how was I going to organize myself to do it. And I was working full-time on Wall Street doing mergers and acquisitions, which is really a consuming profession. And I was traveling a lot. At that time, I was working for the Rothschild family's investment bank, so I was doing a lot of international travel as well.
Wow.
So I just needed to make sure that I shoehorned somewhere into every day, at least an hour or so of writing. And then it became more than that, because once I got started, I'd be taking a cab home, and I'd be making notes, or I'd be outlining a scene for the next day, and so it just sort of built on itself too.
So you were just consumed, I guess, not just with work, but with writing. So you were just, like, every waking moment you were working, essentially, or doing something.
But a career as an investment banker, people would always ask me how many hours a week you work, and it's just not possible to even answer that, because you're always doing something, working on a deal.
I know. You're the guys that have the black cars are lined up outside the building at 11 o'clock at night. Yeah. No, I know.
And that's the car I would take home from the office, and have the little light on in the back the whole way while I'm waiting to get through the Lincoln Tunnel, and I'm outlining a scene, or I'm editing stuff from the day before.
Yeah, but see, what makes you different from the other guys where they were sleeping in the back and you continued to work, right?
Like I said, I made up my mind I was going to do it. And so I finished my first book in about a year, I think. Maybe it was 18 months. I just don't really remember precisely. And I had a good friend at the time whose brother was a very accomplished literary novelist, and he offered to have his brother take a look at it for me, which he did, and he gave me some very good feedback, which was basically, consider this a master of fine arts, and put it up on the shelf in your bedroom closet. He said, I think I've got a couple of them up there still in my closet, and then move on to the next one. He said it was half memoir, half 3 different novels. He said, you got to just start on the next one now that you got this out of your system. So I did.
Okay, so this is the part I think that separates you from a lot of people, and this is why I wanted to have you on. So many people start doing something, they get rejection, or they're afraid to have someone read their work. Now, what is it, once you worked on this, coming home late at night and all of that, and then someone knowledgeable reads it and says, okay, we'll start again? I mean, how do you deal with that? A lot of people would just hang their head and, and be done, or at least be set back for a while.
Well, at the time, I didn't realize it, but because it was my first book. But if you want to be a writer, you have to learn to deal with rejection, and you have to learn to deal with criticism. And I don't know, maybe there's something just different about my makeup where I have always, in wanting to be a better writer, I have always sought out people who are knowledgeable and willing to teach me. And I want them to tell it straight. I don't want a friend of mine to read the book and say, wow, this is great. I want even though I do have some people in my life, my wife and my mother-in-law in particular, who are just totally bluntly honest with me about things in my writing, and you need to have that. My first editor would write stuff when I finally got an editor, which is a little further down the road, and my wife at the time would look over my shoulder and she would just laugh. She said, "I can't believe he's saying that to you." But I said, "But he knows what he's doing, and he's right."
Yeah.
So, so certainly with writing, and if this is a more general audience where people aren't going to necessarily be writers, I think anything you're going to do where you don't know what you're doing, and it's a goal you have to learn how to do that, you got to find people who are going to be critical of you, and not nasty, but who are going to tell you you're doing it wrong, or you can do it better, or something like that.
Yeah. I found I know a lot of people when I talk about writing with other writers, and a big thing is people saying, I'm nervous to have people read it, or I'm nervous to have people judge me, or it's my art. I don't care what other people think. That's so counterproductive. I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. It's silly. Whether it's writing or anything, if you want to learn how to do something, how can you learn to do it if you can't find people who know how to do it to tell you how to do it? And writing is a little different because it's not black and white. But there's some elements of it that are black and white. If you write a crappy scene, that's just flat and there's no emotion and the characters are boring, that's kind of universal. Nobody's going to want to read that.
It's
like I don't think anybody.
A sour note on a trumpet, right? Everyone's going to hear it.
It's either wrong or not, and if it's wrong, you got to fix it.
Yeah. What about? Do you ever have a writer's block, or do you ever have a time where, because this will relate to, we're trying to speak to all creative people, obviously, but is there a time where you just can't come up with an idea, or, sometimes I just don't feel like doing it sometimes.
I don't really understand writer's block, because I never have periods where I can't come up with an idea. I have a ton of ideas, and if you can't come up with an idea, just read the newspaper and it'll give you an idea. What's happening in current events, or you read something about your subject matter. it's so easy now. When I started writing, we really didn't have the internet. I had a librarian at Rothschild did a lot of research for me. She was terrific. She could find anything. Today you can just Google it. But I don't have any trouble with ideas. I have trouble sometimes with just putting my butt in the chair and forcing myself to write, because that's what I have to do. I get excited about writing a scene. Generally, when I write, I just write scenes. I think in terms of scenes. And once you get flowing, it frequently just goes. It comes out like liquid flowing, but most of the time I have to force myself to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to write this scene today. And sometimes it's torture. It takes you 3 or 4 times as long to get through it as it should, because you're just having to force yourself. But like I said earlier, I'm a grinder, and I don't look at writing as a fluid creative process. It's a structured, organized part of the workday.
Yeah. I remember some writer saying once, my wife doesn't understand, when I'm sitting at my desk staring out the window for 2 hours, that means I'm working. And sometimes that's what you're doing,
I would take issue with that. If I'm staring for 2 hours, I'm not working. I gotta get something done in 2 hours.
I've learned to nap sitting down or sitting up, so maybe that's what it is. Now, you mentioned to me that you don't like to read other thrillers while you're writing.
Yeah,
now I agree with that. But is there someone, authors that you really like, or that you would like yourself to be grouped in with? You know what I mean? That type of thing.
Yeah.